if I try to understand what's happening between Russia and Ukraine, okay, I will be able to connect this particular theory and will be able to explain what is going on right now with the help of this theory. Of course, the theory was given decades back, so it will not be 100% applicable. But so, if one particular question, which is of somewhere from current affairs, if it comes in geography optional paper, I have to know that examiner is expecting from me some specialized knowledge. What you see, I will not say geography is a scientific subject. Rather, it would be much more correct to say that geography is a semi-scientific subject. So, altogether, whole of the geography, when divided into physical geography and human geography, be it a person from science background, be it a student from non-science background, they get equal opportunity. Evolution of geography as a discipline.
Yes.
And so in that context, chronology becomes very important. It's about what kind of changes are taking place around the world, what kind of new ideas are evolving. Geography is scoping up with that. From my point of view, completely a half-hearted preparation for this particular portion.
Okay, sir.
Because that's the task that we already do for the students and already providing them those refined notes.
Wonderful, sir. We also need to pay attention to the aspect of maps.
Absolutely.
And maps is something which actually troubles some of the students. So how Hello and welcome to UPSC Preparation Simplified, an initiative by Rao's IAS Study Circle, where we try to solve the problems that you aspirants might be facing while preparing for the UPSC examination. We know that optional is a very significant portion of your mains preparation. Around 25% of the weight is allocated to that. And for this particular purpose, we are actually bringing a series of videos in which we are talking about different optional. Today, we have Mr. Indrajeet Bariar, who's a teacher of geography optional, and he'll be discussing what kind of a preparation you can actually expect when you take geography as an option. So, sir, welcome on board.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, you are into this new infrastructure of Rao's IAS. We have created this new building, the entire building in Karol Bagh. What's the feeling like?
It's very much of a environment or surrounding which definitely gives a positive vibe,
Sir.
and definitely would be very helpful for the preparation.
Wonderful, sir. Sir, now let's talk about geography optional.
Yes,
And you have guided so many of the students in the past years in terms of geography as an option. We want to know one very important fact. Whenever we tell someone that you can choose geography and tell someone that why you should consider geography, there is always a thought process which is going in the mind of the students that is the subject right fit for me? So my question to you is very clear. What to expect when you take geography as an optional?
A very nice question, sir, because I would say there are plethora of options available to the students, and more so, one fact about geography, at least in India, what we can see is there are not too many students who graduate or do post-graduation from geography.
Yes, sir.
So geography is almost new for 90% of the students, I can very clearly say.
That's true, sir.
So now for this we will have to understand the nature of geography. What geography the subject is all about. When geography initially started as a discipline, it was pretty much limited to the knowledge of Earth, where we say geography is the study of Earth. And so initially the school that developed it was purely focusing on the physical aspect. And so geography developed as a physical science. But in due course of time, it was felt that you cannot simply eliminate the humans from the earth, or you cannot delineate these two factors. And so geography evolved as something now from simple study of earth to the study of earth as a home to humans.
Wonderful.
And that's where human geography came into picture. Now, one myth that we find for geography optional amongst the students is, since it is a scientific subject, so people from science background can only take this subject. To some extent, we can agree on that. But then that would be a very superficial level of understanding of the subject.
Very true, very true.
What you see, I will not say geography is a scientific subject. Rather, it would be much more correct to say that geography is a semi-scientific subject. So altogether, whole of the geography, when divided into physical geography and human geography, be it a person from science background, be it a student from non-science background, they get equal opportunity.
Wonderful.
Of course, in the first part, as we see in the paper, the physical geography aspect, paper 1, part 1, okay, that takes up its limited space. It does not breach that space. You have to attempt 4 questions out of that or 5 questions out of that. That's it. The rest of the paper is human geography itself. So, on one hand, if I say that people from science background have an edge over others in the part of that is physical geography, the same applies to people from humanities background.
Yes,
they get the edge in the second part. So it's pretty much balanced. And given the fact that there are very less number of students who actually graduate from this particular subject, geography as a subject in optionals specifically, I would say, provides a very level playing field to majority of the students. Because the last time people may have studied geography would have been in schools only.
Yes.
So everyone almost starts at a level playing field.
So it's basically a wonderful combination of science-based concepts as well as a humanity-centric approach as well in that sense. Now, moving forward, whenever we look into the paper of geography optional, paper 1 and paper 2, one of the things of paper 1 bothers some students in terms of geographical thought. Now, geographical thought in geography is very different from what we normally see in other subjects. So, it has a lot of history, it has a lot of concepts, it has various schools as well in that approach. And we need to understand very clearly. So, what is your approach when you teach this particular topic to the students?
Now, when we think of this particular part, geographical thoughts or geographical theories, if I specifically emphasize right now on geographical thoughts, for this to cover, the approach that we have to understand has to be along 2 parallel dimensions. The first thing what I will need to understand in this particular part of the subject would be evolution of geography as a discipline.
Yes.
And so in that context, chronology becomes very important. But at the same time, if we look at the recent trends in the paper, so 10 years down the line, if we see in the past, it was pretty much focused on this first part, that is the chronological evolution. And so we were getting a number of questions from the classical geographical thoughts or modern classical geographical thoughts. But now with the coming up of new ideas, and these ideas are not just limited to geography, it's about what kind of changes are taking place around the world, what kind of new ideas are evolving. Geography is scoping up with that.
Okay.
And so a number of new sub-branches, I would say, of geography has evolved. So take, for instance, now the questions are being framed from this particular portion, be it, let's say, Marxist geography, socialist geography, or a new trend of feminist geography altogether, or postmodernism concepts. So if you see, postmodernism is not limited to geography. In fact, it is not geography. It's a general concept. But yet, how geography is going to be applicable, or geographical ideas, how they are going to be applicable, and how geography is going to contribute to these new developments, that's now the focus of UPSC.
Okay.
So that's where we have to find a balance between these two. Generally, students, what they would be doing is, they get so much engrossed in whole of the first part, that is the chronological evolution, because in that case, you have a number of different thinkers coming up.
Yes.
And as you rightly pointed out, there have been a number of distinct schools of thought that have developed. So the students limit themselves to that only, and by the time they reach to the modern developments, they are all exhausted, and so they just leave it over there. And this is, from my point of view, completely a half-hearted preparation for this particular portion.
Okay, sir. Now, moving forward to the same dimension, we have talked about thought, but we also need to pay attention to human and economic geography.
Absolutely.
Now, we know that human and economic geography is very important, especially from GS paper, especially from the paper of optional, paper 1, part B. But when we look into the content that is available, the content of human economic geography needs updation as well, which we normally do not see in the standard reference books. So how we at Rao's IAS help the students to cope up with this challenge?
So the approach to human geography is not, I would say, I'll not limit it or segregate it in terms of preparation for paper 1 and preparation of paper 2. That's the first thing.
Okay.
And secondly, the idea over here, if we look at whole of the syllabus, almost part 2 of paper 1, which is the human geography part, apart from geographical thoughts or perspective in human geography, that's the chapter which is there. Beyond that, all the other topics or chapters have straightforward overlap in paper 2. So we have to understand what the examiner would be expecting from you. Let's take, for example, when we talk about population and settlement geography. In paper 1, I have one single chapter as population and settlement geography. The moment I move to paper 2, that is Indian geography.
Yes.
We have population geography separate as a chapter and settlement geography separate as a chapter. Now, if I segregate these two and prepare separately, it will not be a good approach. And you will not be going to benefit in either of the papers.
I understand the point.
So, our approach, how we move through this particular part of whole of the human geography is integrating this. The moment I say integration, let's say, when we talk about paper 1, geography paper 1, the moment I am teaching demographic transition model, or let's say I am talking about Marxist concept of population, or so. The moment this happens, I will have to take up the same topics of overlapping in paper 2 and will have to remain in continuity. So in that perspective, there is a very clear-cut mention in the syllabus what I have to cover. Generally, what we do is we take it to be a general approach, and so we do not prepare it specifically. So if you look at paper 2, in this particular chapter itself, they have mentioned it, demographic attribute. And they have mentioned which demographic attributes you have to prepare. You have to prepare literacy rate, you have to prepare sex ratio. And the moment this happens, it should very naturally come to my mind that if examiner has to take up this approach in paper 1, then they are going to ask. So absolutely, I cannot contain myself in just preparing the literacy rate distribution, the reasons behind that for India. The moment I'm preparing this question, parallelly I would prepare it for the
paper 2 as well.
Paper 1 world distribution, global distribution. Now coming to the material part, absolutely this is more of data. These are more of the facts. And given the idea that I cannot memorize all the facts, for sure, I cannot memorize what are the figures for each and every country individually. So then the geographical approach comes into picture, where a proper guidance is definitely going to help the students. Where you can talk about the spatial distribution, and talking about the spatial distribution, you go by region-wise studies, and present a comparative view rather than presenting pure crude facts. And that's where we take use of multiple sources. We can use the websites, basically, primarily. We have to work on that.
Okay.
And that's where we come very handy. Because that's the task that we already do for the students and already providing them those refined notes.
Wonderful, sir. Now, whenever we look into the topic of geography as a subject, paper 1, paper 2, you have very well highlighted that this subject is a wonderful blend of science-based concepts, application of science-based concepts, as well as humanity-centric approach. So, how a student can actually balance what is the right way to follow at what point of time? How do you help them?
The first idea, the first problem, or the first challenge definitely would be what I have called as semi-scientific part.
Okay.
That is the physical geography part.
Sir.
Now, physical geography part, yes, geography, physical geography especially, is a science, no doubt in that, and we use a lot of scientific concepts into that. But the first thing we have to understand is, at the level of UPSC, we are not going into the research field. And so at that time, what we study are only derived results. Now, what the actual geographers or what the actual climatologists would be doing, let's say, for example, they would be using hardcore science or physics into that. But that's not something which is in our syllabus. So we actually have to study their findings. Their findings. We don't have to find something new. And that's where, although it is a science, but that science is of very elementary level.
Okay.
I would say a person from non-science background, let's say, for example, also has studied science up to 10th standard.
Yes.
Physics up to 10th standard. Probably the case may be that, yes, they may have forgotten some concepts. But that's where in the classes you can make them remember those concepts if needed. In short, you can explain them, and then it becomes very easy to grasp. And the best thing about this particular approach is, once you have understood it through the concepts, through the established scientific principles or theories, you are never going to forget it.
Because they're conceptual in nature.
Absolutely. So you are never going to make any mistake in that. You are never going to forget it. So that's one part where we focus on physical geography as well. The moment we come to human geography approach, that is where our task becomes more and more. Because already, as we have discussed, we have to update it with current data. And data would be coming, keep coming in. Okay, from one source or another source, you have a National Family Health Survey coming up. So if you go by the old data, definitely it will not be reflecting the present position.
Yes, sir.
So in the second part, we will have to align that with current affairs. And so in that case, I don't find too much of difficulty for the students. As you asked how to balance it, balancing come very natural, because the second part, that is human geography part of optional, what is there, a lot of questions anyways, or a lot of topics anyways a student has to study in GS.
Yes, that's a fact actually.
You cannot go without being prepared for human geography sort of questions. What in GS probably we may not call it geography, but anyways you are going to study. So the balancing becomes quite easy in that particular case.
Wonderful, sir. Now, moving forward, whenever we are looking into geography as an optional, we also need to pay attention to the aspect of maps.
Absolutely.
And maps is something which actually troubles some of the students. So how you help the students to develop some grasp on the map?
Now, the first thing about mapping, what students believe and how I have seen new students practicing also, is they consider mapping as something how people generally consider what geography is. Because when I meet people who have not yet started preparation, let's say for example, people from normal walk of life, even my parents also, when they tell me that, okay, you are a student of geography, tell me where is this place, tell me where is that place. So commonly the idea, the common myth about geography for people is geography is all about knowing the places. But that's not correct, and that's applicable to mapping.
Okay.
You cannot memorize each and every place. Definitely the questions in the recent times, there are some entries of the mapping which are random in nature, but yet we have to find some order in that.
Yes, sir.
And that's what in mapping, particular mapping concept, I call it method in madness. There is absolute randomness.
Order in chaos.
Yes, definitely. So in this case, as far as the preparation from our side is concerned, we can very clearly, we divide it into two parts. And how questions are coming, one part or the one section of the mapping question would always be the basic locations. When I say basic locations, they are the traditional locations which are related to geography. Now, this is one part I always say no one has to prepare separately, and you should not, because then you will not be able to link it, and so you will not be able to keep it in your memory for long. So this is one part where we cover this particular portion of mapping along with the general studies all itself. General study means general subjects or general chapters of geography optional. So let's say for example, if I'm dealing with geomorphology, when I'm talking about different types of waterfalls, how waterfalls are formed, wouldn't it be easy if at that time only I show students that, okay, these are the major waterfalls here or there. The same goes with economic geography. The moment I'm talking about economic geography transport chapter and I'm talking about the ports or XYZ, I cover almost half of the portion of mapping along with my syllabus itself. So there is no separate preparation. The second part which is there, which of course one has to focus upon, would be the entries or the places related to some current happenings.
Yes, yes.
And that is for sure everyone would be expecting. And that's not a big deal because the student anyways is preparing for GS, student anyways is preparing for current affairs. The only additional task for a student of geography optional would be exactly locate those places.
Yes,
if you are reading the magazine, like Focus magazine we are reading, we have read that, okay, it has happened here, it has happened there. You just open the atlas, you locate that place, you just think of 20-30 words what you are going to write if it comes over, not more than that. So that's something which will almost cover 80% of your mapping question. 80%.
That's very significant.
Definitely. 20% that would be random one. That is something where we will have to depend on some luck or chance that you may have heard of it, you may not have heard of it.
And keep practicing.
Yes, absolutely.
That's wonderful. Now, moving forward, we know that geography is a very static subject. And when you say static, it means everything is well established, the syllabus is well defined, books are available at the same time. But recently, we have seen that a lot of concepts of current affairs do creep or do seep into the process of question making in mains as well. So, how can actually students integrate what is happening in current affairs from the perspective of geography optional?
Now, this is where we differentiate when the same type of question is asked in GS and when the same question is asked in geography optional. And how do we learn to differentiate in terms of what to write where? So, if one particular question, which is of somewhere from current affairs, if it comes in geography optional paper, I have to know that examiner is expecting from me some specialized knowledge. The moment that happens, I go back to the idea of geographical theories. And that's the purpose of geographical theories. Why you study geographical theories is to explain the things in real life. Now, explaining the things in real life, it's not just about established facts of the real life. It's about whatever is happening also. And the same you can see pretty much very clear and very easy. Let's take for instance the idea of political geography. So political geography, whatever would be happening around the world, whatever is going on in, let's say, Russia, or so Ukraine crisis is happening, whatever was happening in Syria, I will have to figure out that somewhere down the line, some geographical theory must have talked about it. So you talk about heartland rimland theory. There is this theory in political geography. Now, if I try to understand what's happening between Russia and Ukraine, okay, I will be able to connect this particular theory and will be able to explain what is going on right now with the help of this theory. Of course, the theory was given decades back, so it will not be 100% applicable, but yet I'll be able to do some justice to that.
Fine.
And that's what the examiner of geography optional is expecting from me. So if I write a plain answer, that will not be going to benefit me in terms of fetching the marks. So the whole of the idea is how you present that idea, because the tools already you have.
Yes.
You already have studied geographical theories, all the theories you have studied. You already have prepared the current aspect in the current affairs in GS itself. Now the only thing is link them.
Sir, when we talk about this particular approach of preparation, so there is an idea of organizing knowledge and information in our mind. But at the same time, the very important aspect is how to write good to great answers. So what is the approach in terms of that you follow to help the students to do answer writing practice?
So the first thing regarding this is the Sigma rule that I say.
Okay.
That unless and until you write, you don't know how you will write.
Okay.
So the first thing, that is answer writing practice. So the answer writing practice, and why we say that, of course, I'll say that in physical geography part, since it is all static, or as you mentioned, it's all established, there is nothing new you are going to add. So even if you have, let's say for example, not practice, although that's not recommended. Okay, but if you have not practiced, probably you may write down a good answer over there. But the problem over remaining of the part, because this one particular part that I was talking about is only 25% of your paper. The rest 75% of the paper is something of interlinkages between different topics. This interlinkage between different topics, we will not be able to establish more so over at the time of when you have the pressure, the pressure situation in the examination, that will not allow you to think in 360 degrees. And that is where answer writing practice comes very handy. So the more and more you write the answers, the more and more you are guided on that particular aspect, because multiple views will give you multiple dimensions, the ideas. Okay, you have thought of linking this particular topic to X or Y topic. Probably a third person may tell you Z topic also. And so answer writing practice with guidance definitely enrich this particular capability of you. And that's where we find the success mantra in terms of geography optional. We know geography is a very highly scoring optional. Okay, but that particular portion or that particular proportion of the people who are scoring that high definitely is limited to the people who are following this particular approach. So as in our course, as in what I do particularly in my classes, is make sure that people are writing the answers in the class itself. So some time in the lecture, after the lecture or in between the lecture, we dedicate to answer writing. Let's say I give a question what I have taught 2 days, 3 days back, and now you have to write the answer in the class itself. Probably after that I may be asking few of them what they have written and then giving them a basic idea of what could have been done or how you could have done justice to the examination. So by this practice, what I have been following, by the time we end the course, people already end up writing good number of answers.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Beyond that, definitely, test series is something which gives you that particular final touch to the preparation. Because you already have prepared your syllabus, completed your syllabus. Now is the time to learn how to apply those concepts, apply that knowledge in writing the good answers. And that's where people end up scoring very good marks in these sections.
I think the basic idea is to make the approach more applied.
Yes.
And even UPSC is expecting the similar kind of approach for geography as well.
Absolutely.
So thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing all this knowledge, all this wisdom. I hope that students will get greatly benefited by that, and they must be having a better perspective in terms of how to approach geography as an optional. So, sir, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
This was Indrajeet, sir, and this was his approach in terms of how he deals geography as an optional. And in this context, I think this is a very important aspect for you as well when you're going to make a choice, a conscious choice of how to choose an optional subject. Is geography the right fit for you? And if geography is the right fit, is Indrajeet sir going to help you in terms of getting top ranks in the coming examination? Now, we keep on posting our videos on Rouse IS e-learn platform as well as Rouse IS YouTube channel. And if you like our content, please do like, please do share, please do comment. And if you have any other query, please feel free to reach out to us. We will be more than happy to help you. From the entire team of Rouse IS, we wish you all the best. Take very good care of yourself.